Hi, my name is Maria and I'll be your pharmacist for today. I see here that you have a new insurance and I'd like to see if you have any time to go over some of the basic understandings of insurance. Do you have any time? Okay, great. Now, the first thing I would like to go over is what is called a premium. Now, a premium is a one-time-a-year fee that you must pay in order to use your insurance. Now, if you never use the insurance at all, you still have to pay your premium. Next thing I would like to talk to you about is something called a deductible. Now, a deductible is a type of cost sharing and it is the amount of money that you must pay towards in order to start using your insurance. Now, deductibles can be high or can be low, and another thing that might they entail is something that is called a deductible balance. Now, an example of this can be if you have a deductible of $500 and you go to see a specialist, and the cost of seeing that specialist is $200. Now, that means that you still have $300 left under your deductible balance. Now, once you actually pay off that whole deductible balance of $500, you can start receiving the real benefits of the insurance. Now, this may seem sort of unfair. However, the important thing to realize here is that once you are paying towards your deductible, you are still receiving the negotiated price. Therefore, you are still actually receiving a benefit. Now, the next thing I would like to talk about is called a copay or a copayment. Now, this is also a type of cost sharing, and it is a flat fee that the insurance charges you for a very predictable medical service or supplies. Now, an example of this can be an annual physical exam, the type of exam that you go to see your doctor every year, because you might have actually seen that when you go to get your physical, you might actually have a copay of, let's say, like $12. Now, insurances use that because it is they consider it to be very predictable. So that is that. Next thing I would like to talk to you about is something called a coverage gap. Now, a coverage gap is also known as, you might have heard it, otherwise known as the donut hole. And this is something that it is basically a certain time of the year where your insurance decides or puts a brief hold on what they will or will not cover. And this basically begins once the insurance company and the insured, which is you, have paid a certain amount of money towards your insurance plan. Now, I have seen a lot of patients go into the coverage gap around end of summer, beginning of fall, and in some cases, or in some insurance plans, they don't come out of the coverage gap for the rest of the year. Or I've also seen them come out usually around like December. So really it varies between each insurance plan and each insurance company. So if you want to find out more information about that, either we can give the insurance company a call or you can give the insurance company a call. It's very simple, and they can let you know if you go into it, when you go into it, when you come out of it. So that is that. And the next thing I would like to talk to you about is called drug or tiering. Now, this is when the insurance company puts certain drugs into categories or tiers. And this is typically can have a large effect on how much you will pay for a certain drug. So in your insurance company that you have now might consider your atorvastatin to be tier 1. However, last year, when you had a different insurance company, they considered to be tier 2. Now, it really can vary on which insurance company you have, where the drugs fall in each tier. Other things that might play a part is like brand and generic. Usually generic because it's cheaper is more like tier 1. Brand, more expensive. It can really vary, tier 2, 3, something like that. But important thing to realize here with drug tiering is that it can vary between each insurance company and plan, and it can have a large or it can have a kind of substantial effect on how much you will pay. And the insurance company uses that to figure out how much they want to charge you. Next thing I would like to talk to you about is a formulary. Now, this is a list of prescribed medications that a patient is on. Now, I see here that you have a few medications on your profile, and those would be considered to be on your patient, your drug formulary. This can also, as well as serving as a list of prescribed medications that you are on, this can also help to figure out, what drugs are very popular or very, have high effects of, if they're really beneficial, and as well as it tells, the rate of like patient compliance. So I see a lot of people actually on atorvastatin. So this tells us that it is very popular because it works, and there is patient compliance is very high. So this is a good drug for patients to be on if they have high cholesterol. Next thing I'd like to talk about is star rating. Now, you might have seen star rating in a couple of other things outside of, it doesn't pertain just to like insurance. I've seen it, on movies. Basically, it's very simple. 5 stars being the best, and then 1 star, towards the lower end, kind of like the worst. Basically, it's sort of just an overall calculated, bunch of different aspects coming into play. It's just a summary of the overall qualities of an insurance company or plan. And this sort of helps for patients or doctors, to help decide, which insurance plans or companies are the best, and, which ones do we want to stay away from. You can find these star ratings on, the internet. You can call your insurance company, figure that out. The next thing I'd like to talk to you about is something that I find that it's actually really important to make sure that patients understand the difference between brand and generic drugs. Now, brand is something that is more expensive. It's what comes out first, and then the generic is followed by the brand. It is what comes out after the brand, and it is cheaper. And the reason why it is cheaper is because when drug developers, are creating the brand, they have to go through so many trials or so many expenses that come along with it. And then, the drug's been out, the brand's been out, and now they're starting to develop the generic. Now, because brand and generic are the same exact drug, they don't have to go through as many trials or the other expenses because they've already done it with the brand. So that is why the generic actually is substantially cheaper. And that's just the main takeaway from this, is that the true only difference between brand and generic is the cost. And so a lot of patients, are on the generic because of the costs. Now, I see here in your profile that your doctor prescribed you Lipitor, which is brand name, and we're going to be giving you atorvastatin, which is the generic. And that's that is a Massachusetts law, where if there is if the doctor prescribes, brand name and there is a generic, I'm legally obligated to give you the generic unless the doctor writes on the script, no substitution. Now, I think that is everything that I wanted to go over. I actually made a little summary here of just sort of what we talked about, some of the basic terms. Our contact information is on here as well. If you have any questions or concerns about anything that we talked about today, please give us a call. Like I said, our number is on here. And just have a really awesome day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.